When Disney purchased the Star Wars franchise, they made the decision to decanonize all previously established content, besides the movies and the Clone Wars animated TV show. This meant that all of what was then called the expanded universe was lost to the ether of time. While Disney has since rescued some of the better characters and put them back into canon, looking at you, Thrawn, Mara Jade's story is not among their number. And yet, this mysterious ginger assassin, the Emperor's Hand, wife of pre-Grumpface Luke, aka Luke, and wielder of yet another purple lightsaber, has a story worth telling. Today on Zareth Prevails, we'll discuss the lore surrounding this tough chick who hates Luke Skywalker until she doesn't, and look at her place within Galaxy of Heroes. We know very little of Mara Jade's parents. What we do know is that Mara was taken away from her family at an early age, and the ruler of the galaxy, Emperor Palpatine himself, somehow found the time to teach her to use the dark side of the Force. She was also trained to do secret agent ninja stuff by people who were not Palpy himself. Mara's secret role as an assassin was hidden in plain sight, officially understood to be one of the palace dancers. I'm guessing that's after she grew up a little bit and she wasn't like 3 or something. Mara was given several high-level targets to neutralize for her master, and by neutralize I mean killed, and she apparently just went right along with it. Of course, given the Star Wars obsession with hands in general, it only made sense that the Emperor would call her the Emperor's Hand instead of giving her any credit for anything she actually did. I mean, to be clear, she was rewarded sometimes. For instance, the Emperor would often compliment Mara Jade, telling her, "Good job, Hand." It led to several awkward moments, as his advanced age sometimes caused him to transpose 2 of those words into something that wouldn't generally be considered appropriate in the workplace. But, as it happens, it pays to be your own boss, and he rarely got in trouble for it. There were several missions she did that we could discuss, but suffice it to say that she didn't die, and she didn't lose her job, and she didn't suck at what she did. Until one fateful day, Palpy decided to undermine his own plans to get a younger Skywalker apprentice by sending Mara off to assassinate Luke. She infiltrated Jabba's palace as a dancer, and then was forced to pout when he wouldn't let her go with him on his sail barge and feed people to his ball pit monster. Palpy sent her on another mission to a place called Svivrin, and then got dumped down the Death Star shaft by Darth Vader. One might say he got shafted. One wouldn't be wrong. While he was dying at the hands of Darth Vader, Palpy somehow had the mental energy to send a vivid but inaccurate Force vision to Mara about his death, showing Luke and Vader working together to destroy him in a planned coup. "You will kill Luke Skywalker," was his last command, using all caps. It would mess with her mind for several years. Her only real loyalty was to old Sheev Palpatine himself, and once he was dead, Mara had no reason to stick around. She quickly ditched the Empire, despite some of the few people who knew who she was trying to use her to gain power, and instead joined up with top smuggler Talon Card. She quickly became his number 2. Then right after that, because it's a novel, Luke Skywalker somehow ended up on her ship after almost dying to an ambush set by Thrawn. Through a plot device that allowed some creatures called Ysalamiri to send out bubbles of force cancellation, Mara Jade was able to maintain a roughly equal power level to Jedi Luke while they were on the smuggler ship. As a side note, these are the same creatures Thrawn has up as art in the Rebels animated show. Mara and Luke would go on to fight a clone of the old Jedi Master Joruus Sabaoth, an echo of how authors back then didn't know crap about the Clone Wars, but were willing to speculate. Mara would valiantly try to hate Luke Skywalker for the sake of her old master, but instead she started to like him. And then, after the Thrawn books were over, she started to like him, and together they shut down an attempt by Thrawn to clone himself, and then got married after that in a comic book because it was too important for a novel. Then they went on to have several epic adventures, ruling the new Jedi Order with an iron fist until the Yuuzhan Vong appeared. The Vong were a species that invaded the galaxy from a different galaxy and had ships that were alive and took dumps and everything, but also they were totally immune to the Force. The ensuing conflict was epic, and Chewbacca had a moon crash into him, so he died. Then Han and Leia's son Jason turned to the dark side after the Vong threat was inevitably taken care of. It was a crazy time. Mara had found time to have a baby with Luke, whose name was Ben, and Ben told her that Jason was hanging out with a dark side user named Lumia. Mara went over and beat Lumia up, then confronted Jason about being a Sith, and everyone knows that if you get confronted about being a Sith, you gotta fight about it. So her nephew Jason killed her, and that was that. People were sad probably, and then Disney went all Order 66 on the expanded universe stories, and it stopped mattering. Until, of course, we got Mara Jade in Galaxy of Heroes. In-game, Mara reverts to her earliest version, the Emperor's Hand. Besides Galactic Legends, she is currently the 5th fastest character in the game. She appears to be custom built to go alongside Emperor Palpatine, despite the irony that he used to just send her on missions, not go on them with her. Especially, they didn't go on missions alongside Starkiller and Old Ben and some chick from 4,000 years ago. She's a powerful character whose wide range of abilities and the speed to strike first allow her teams to run a turn meter train to victory. She uses the EP leadership of inflicting debuffs to generate turn meter, where she applies more debuffs, including an AoE shock, which then helps Emperor Palpatine take several turns in a row and assists whenever Mara does a basic. When on a Starkiller team, Starkiller assists every time, like a happy little puppy following his new owner around. Eventually, that achieves what Palpatine had always envisioned when creating his epic war machines, a Star Destroyer of healing. Mara was never formally a Sith, despite the fact that she worked for one, and some say under one for a time, but she is a strong Force user. She's a dark side unaligned Force user, or a Disufu in Galaxy of Heroes, which fits perfectly into this Starkiller team alongside Palpy lead. However, in Territory Wars, she usually goes with Palpy to kill all kinds of fun stuff without Starkiller, including Inquisitors, even with their Datacron. And their Omicrons, for that matter. She is one of the most mandatory Omicrons for Territory Wars in the game at this point. When you're playing EP Mara, remember the 5 S's: Shock, Stun, Stagger, Starkiller, and Shock. Mara is a requirement character to unlock Starkiller, and if you don't have Emperor Palpatine unlocked or usable, she is probably not worth your time, though she is worth farming early, even if you aren't trying to get Starkiller yet. You want to mod her with lots of speed. I typically recommend 365 or more, though I realize that's out of reach for many. Speed set and potency set with as much extra potency as you can find in case you need to use the Shock Stagger AoE before the Tenacity Down AoE is recommended, though she doesn't really need any other stats besides speed and potency. In Legends, Mara hates Luke Skywalker, and in the game you can see that reflected by her ability to blind him passively every time she takes a turn. In Legends, she is killed by someone named Jason. In Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, she is killed by people whose names are Jason, probably. Will we ever get another version of Mara? The light side version, whose gruff exterior is predictably softened because of how she's a good guy now, and that's kind of required? Only time will tell. It seems really fortunate that we even have her in the game at all, though there have been hints in the show Andor that at least someone is running around killing people as an Emperor's hand. Whether or not those hands do good jobs is, I suppose, up to the Emperor to decide. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Zareth prevails.